to teach public speaking at a different university, so it's required to record speeches for the students to watch their own speech, and they didn't like that. But the good thing about that is, sometimes as an instructor, you write out some criticism and write out sometimes it can be negative, and without recording, they just felt like you are being picky. But after watching their own recording, so they felt like you were being merciful.
Teacher at my other school, for our speech class, she had us record them, but then we never watched them or anything. And she that day, whenever it was our big speech, we had to have a memory card to put it into the camera, and she got mad at everybody in the class because they didn't bring memory cards, and then we didn't use them for anything. So
did the students do that on purpose?
No, they just didn't pay attention.
Okay. Hopefully that's recording. So when I was in elementary school, the teachers sometimes they do a demonstration or teacher observation. So they will have officials or superintendents, that kind of people come into the classroom to watch them teaching. So in order to prepare for that, because they want to show a perfect class, right? So they want to show whenever the teacher asks a question, the students know the answer, right? So before the day of the observation, they would ask the students, raise your hand anyway, right? When I ask a question, raise your hand anyway. If you know the answer, raise your hand. If you don't know your answer, raise your hand. But the difference is, if you know your answer, raise your right hand. If you don't know your answer, raise your left hand. So the teacher will know who to pick. So before today's class, I have a couple things to tell you. First thing is about the exam results. It's not good news. So last time I talked about it, the average was really high, right? So this one dropped by 0.5 points. so never mind. So still pretty good. Still give to the class, obviously. But the good thing is we have more students who scored above 90 than last time. We have 9 students, so that's the majority. And also, we have 3 students who got 100 points. So that's pretty good. Okay. So just keep doing that, and you have been doing very well. And in the exams, in the assignments, we only have few things left. So keep doing that. Okay. So today we're going to talk about organizational culture, and that's a very interesting chapter. So we're going to spend a few days on this chapter. So today we're going to talk about the chapter first half, mainly focus on national culture. Then the next class on Monday we're going to focus on organizational culture and also culture, intercultural communication, that kind of thing. And then Wednesday we're going to do a session, organizational culture session in class and in groups. Okay, so you don't need to prepare for that. You just come in and then I'll give you instructions and I'll give you examples how to do that. Then Friday we're going to watch moving. Part of the moving is related to organizational culture and also national culture as well. Yes.
When are they doing the chapter 11 group discussion?
I think that's next Monday.
Okay.
So if you are leading the discussion, that's next Monday. But Wednesday and Friday we're going to do special sessions. Okay. So in order to, we talk about that culture is a big thing, right? Culture, and actually it's getting more and more important now, getting more and more attention from people who wanted to study business, or they want to study organizational communication, all those things. Culture is a big thing. We understand organizations have different cultures. we also understand that countries have different cultures. So I want to show you a few things. You can see those, right? So I want you to take a look at that and tell me, when you look at those logos or the companies they represent, what do they have in common by your observation?
Their full name and their logo.
Okay, sure. That's a good observation. So they have their names in that logo. Anything else?
They all provide a service.
So services, kind of most of them provide service instead of products. Okay, that's a good point. That's kind of goes back to chapter 1. Anything else? Think about a country. Which country owns this company?
They're all US.
I think all U.S. companies, right?
Yeah.
American companies. So that's one thing they have in common. They are American companies. That means they started in America. So now they are actually multinational companies. So you can see those companies or branches or offices in other countries. So that's no problem. But starting in this country, that means they carry some kind of characteristics with this culture, American culture. When you think about the management, when you think about leadership, when you think about service, quality of service. So there is American culture in it, right? But the other common thing among those companies, I want to tell you is they all went to China. They all branched out to China because the market there is huge, right? 1.5, 1.3, or 1.4 billion people and consumers. So they wanted to have a share in the market, so they all went to China. And another common thing among those organizations or companies, they all withdrew from the China market. They all failed in the Chinese market. They didn't do well. So I'll give you a few examples. So eBay went to China very early, 1990s or early 2000, and didn't do well, didn't compete with the local companies, kind of similar business model, well, because the culture, organizational culture. eBay, what's eBay famous for? Selling things online, right? But what's their model of selling? How do you buy things from eBay?
Things from like other people.
Okay, secondhand, right? Sometimes secondhand, but And also, the other way of selling things, they use bidding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, now they have more options. You can buy now, but before it's mainly bidding. So you bid a price, offer, and then whether they're gonna accept the offer. But this is very new. This was a very new concept to Chinese population. They didn't like to wait. They didn't like to bid and then wait to find the results. And also, second-hand stuff and products were not really part of the Chinese culture. You don't really buy second-hand. Okay, so eBay didn't do well. Another one, Home Depot. Okay, Home Depot is still successful in this country, right? So, when do you go to Home Depot?
Repairing your house or you're working on like the outdoors.
Okay, so a lot of times you're gonna buy materials and the stuff for you to use, right? You're gonna do it by yourself. You're gonna do the repair. You're gonna fix things, watching YouTube videos, try to fix things, But this is also a new concept to Chinese consumers, and DIY is not a part of Chinese culture. You don't really build things by yourself, on your own. So, and also when you have things broken, you hire people because it's very cheap to hire labor there. So instead of you do it by yourself, you just make a phone call, people come in, fix it, and probably takes it less than, I would say, $50 or even less to fix it, a labor fee. So it's very cheap there. So this concept of the Home Depot, DIY, do it by yourself thing is not really popular. So they opened up a few stores, and people didn't really felt the need to go to Home Depot, buy stuff, build things, or fix things. So they went out of business really quickly. Google is a little bit different. Google was successful in China, but the thing made them to withdraw from Chinese market was the law and regulation. Google believed that freedom of internet, freedom of access, right, and no censorship, that kind of thing. I mean, limited censorship, probably. But Chinese market is different. The law is different. The regulation is different. So Google didn't like that. Google didn't want to censor the information. So instead, they withdrew from Chinese market. Okay. So as you can see, all those companies, they are American companies. They kind of have that, American, if you call it, genes in their body and culture and the way of doing things, and they wanted to expand to other countries without much culture adaptation. Sometimes it's very difficult for those companies to survive in another culture or in another country, because other countries, they have a different culture and they have different regulations, so you need to adapt to. It's like when you go to another country yourself, right? As a person, you go to another country. A lot of times you don't really behave, 100% like what you behave, how you behave in this country. Usually you adapt to the local culture a little bit. If you don't do that, you're going to suffer a little bit. You're going to suffer, culture shock. You don't know where to go, and you can't make friends. Okay, and also will make your life kind of miserable. So moving on to culture, the definition itself. So I would like to have an activity. So for you to have 3 or 2 in your group, people, and so the instructions basically research, write, and share definition. Definitely you can research. You can use your phone or your computer. If you decide not to do that, that's fine. If you want to, based on your own understanding, your own experience, observation, you want to write something that's from your experience, then that's fine. Okay. So I would like you to work in groups with 1 or 2 people, and then talk about this, and then write a definition together. Okay. Instead of you write the definition by yourself, then have another person or have 2 people working with you to write down a definition. Okay. Have 2 minutes to work on that. Then later I'll probably ask you to share your definition from the group.
Accumulated pattern of values, beliefs, and behaviors shared by an action or group in a verbal and non-verbal. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the book definition is pretty good.
One of Google's are not weird, it's just different. It says that it would be like intellectual achievement regarding
Yeah, I don't feel like that's good
it's not
enough.
always so much shared.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess another definition word should be more of the day-to-day stuff, not necessarily the projected art. Just the normal day-to-day interactions.
Yeah, and I like the values and beliefs when they included that in their definition.
Yeah. 1 more minute. I will ask you to share definition from your group. Don't worry about it being correct or being the one to covers everything about culture, because there are many definitions from different scholars, different disciplines. They try to define this thing, and it's pretty hard to define. This is something very abstract, and probably people from different backgrounds, they have different understanding with that definition. Okay, it seems most of you are ready. Anybody want to share your definition or your group's definition?
I wrote down values and beliefs lived out in day-to-day normal experiences by a select group of people.
Day to day. Okay.
Just like
So like everyday life. Okay. So that's kind of a definition. Some people will call it, you get a culture from routine, you get a culture from daily life.
I wrote down a system of shared beliefs, values, and assumptions which governs how people behave in an organization.
Okay, so it's a system of things govern how people behave, behaviors. Okay. Yes. Lisa.
Culture is a group of people that share common ideals, customs, beliefs, and values who communicate with someone or one.
Okay, so also kind of a system and communicate a similar thing, right? Okay. Maybe one from this side.
Social behaviors and norms found in a group of people.
Norms and social behaviors found in a group of people. Okay, so I think we had very good definitions. You have touched on a few things that are very important. A group of people, common, similar behaviors, governing, all those things. So let's find out the book's definition and see how, compare yours with the book's definition, how alike they are. Here's the first part of the definition. Sophia, can you read that?
A culture is a group of people with similar backgrounds who think, act, and communicate similarly.
Okay, I think that's very similar as Lisa's definition. Right? Very similar. So, and then the second part. Jillian, can you read the second part?
This group of people share values, attitudes, beliefs, norms for behavior, and perceptions of appropriate behavior.
Okay. So they have, the second part kind of offer a little more about what they have in common. Okay. Those are the things they have in common. And it's very interesting because if you look at the definition there, and you can see culture actually has a lot, contain a lot of the things, values, attitudes, beliefs, norms, behaviors, perception, proper behavioral rules. I'll give you one simple example. We learned nonverbal communication from chapter 3, right? Just think about it, eye contact. Okay, so think about it, your culture's standard or kind of instructions, guidelines for eye contact. Think about it, American culture, is eye contact encouraged or disencouraged? Encouraged. And why?
It's a sign of respect.
Okay, sign of respect. And I think I mentioned this before. In my culture, in East Asian culture, eye contact is not encouraged because it shows disrespect. You can see, same behaviors, totally different meaning. What's the difference there? The only difference there is the culture behind it. Okay, culture kind of defines your behaviors and what is considered proper behaviors, what's considered encouraged behaviors, what you should not do, things like that. So culture is something that is very abstract. You can't really see, you can't really touch, but actually will govern everyday behaviors, everyday life. So through the behaviors, you will find a culture. You will understand the culture. There are some related concepts. This one called subculture and co-culture. Even though we have, very two different terms, just consider they are the same. They are describing the same thing. So subculture is basically a subdivision of a large culture. Okay. Consider a national culture, U.S. culture. What kind of subculture you can find within U.S. culture?
Southern culture.
Southern culture. Can you give me a couple of characteristics of Southern culture?
Hospitality,
Okay.
accents different.
Sure, the ways people speak, right? Or even, you know, you think about a cowboy, that might be a little bit religious, Southern culture or Western culture. Right? Anything else? Any other subcultures within the U.S. culture?
Like urban culture.
Urban culture. Okay. Anything else? So you can think about locations. And also maybe you can think about you know, class, different economic status. You can think about age, right? You can think about it, baby boomers, millennials. What's the name the label they call millennials? Snowflake? Have you heard that? No? So basically they are just seeing a lot of the generational labels, they are stereotypes, right? So snowflakes, basically they say, oh, this generation is so easy to be offended, so sensitive, and I mean they don't really do well under the pressure, all those things. But we know it's not true because every generation you have stereotypes from other generations.